College is supposed to be exciting. New friends, new freedom, new memories that are supposed to last a lifetime. But behind the parties, the laughter, and the campus tours lies something much darker. Stories that never make it into the brochures. Stories whispered between students in hushed tones late at night. Stories about the places you shouldn't go, the things you shouldn't see, and the people you shouldn't trust. Tonight, we're diving into 3 true college horror stories that will make you think twice about whether your campus is as safe as you believe. From a dorm room that shouldn't exist, to a study group with an unexpected visitor, and tunnels beneath the university that hide names that should have never been written. Before we get into these 3 stories, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Your support helps keep these stories alive. Now you can turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and get comfortable. Because these stories are best heard in the dark. The 3 stories I'm about to tell you come from students who swore their experiences were real. And while they may sound unbelievable, they'll leave you questioning just how safe your own school really is. These aren't your typical ghost stories. These are disturbing, unexplainable, and terrifying encounters that could happen to anyone. Tonight, we'll explore 3 true college horror stories. The dorm room that changed, the study group stranger, and the campus tunnel. When Tyler and his roommate, Matt, returned to campus after winter break, they were exhausted but glad to be back. The campus was always quieter during that first week, with only half the students trickling in, and the walk back to their dorm felt surreal. Snow crunched under their boots, and their breath fogged the cold January air as they approached the familiar brick building that housed sophomores. Their dorm was on the 3rd floor, 3B, the same tiny room they had shared all semester. The door had a faint dent in it from when Tyler accidentally rammed it with his desk chair earlier that year, and the handle always stuck before it opened. But when they reached it this time, the dent was gone. The handle wasn't sticking. Inside, everything felt off. The beds were there. The desks were there. Their posters, their mini fridge, even their cheap carpet from Walmart. But the arrangement was slightly different, like someone had entered and rearranged everything to almost match their memory. Almost, but not quite. The window, which had always faced the quad, now looked out over the parking lot. Tyler swore the walls had been white, but now they had a faint green tint. Matt tried to laugh it off, saying maybe the maintenance crew had repainted over break, or maybe they were just tired. But the strangeness kept piling up. That first night, when Tyler tried to sleep, he noticed the room was silent, too silent. Normally, they could hear muffled footsteps from the hall, music from other rooms, or at least the hum of the vending machine outside their door. But in this room, none of that existed. When they checked the hallway, it wasn't the same hallway they remembered. It stretched much longer, bending slightly, and none of the doors matched their old floor. There were no exit signs, no bulletin board with the REA's name. It got worse when Tyler tried to call his girlfriend. His phone showed full bars, but the call never went through. Matt's phone wouldn't even turn on. The next day, Tyler went to find the dining hall. He walked the hallway, took the stairs, and ended up in a different hallway that he didn't recognize. Every door looked the same, numbered in a sequence that didn't match the building. Some doors were locked. Some had no handles. A few seemed to open slightly on their own when he passed, though he never saw anyone inside. When he finally returned, or thought he returned, to the room, Matt was pale, sitting on his bed. He said something had been knocking on the window all morning, but they were on the 3rd floor. Outside was nothing but sheer brick. That night, Tyler woke to the sound of their door creaking open. The hallway outside was pitch black. Slowly, a shape entered. Not a person, not exactly. It was tall, but its limbs bent the wrong way, and its face, if it had one, was blurred, like something half remembered in a dream. It moved into the room, sat on the empty bed, and stayed there until morning. Tyler and Nat never slept again in that room. They tried to switch dorms, but the housing office claimed no record of them living in 3 Bites. That room had been empty for years. To this day, neither of those students could ever explain what happened in that dorm. The school claimed it was the same room they'd always been assigned, but they both knew it wasn't. The windows, the layout, even the hallway beyond their door, none of it matched. And the worst part? Weeks later, when they tried to revisit the room, the entire floor had been sealed off for maintenance. Was it some kind of structural shift no one wanted to admit? Or did they accidentally step into a version of their campus that wasn't supposed to exist? Whatever it was, they both dropped out the following semester, and that dormitory has remained empty since. If you found this story disturbing, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And remember, if your dorm room ever feels just a little off, trust your instincts. You might not be in the same place you left behind. College is stressful. All-nighters, exams, endless hours crammed into libraries or dorm lounges. Most of the time, late-night study groups are harmless, even comforting. A few friends, a pile of notes, maybe some coffee to stay awake. But every now and then, when the clock ticks past midnight and exhaustion sets in, the mind starts to play tricks. Or at least, that's what you'd like to believe. Because sometimes, what you see sitting across from you at that hour isn't a friend. It isn't even human. This next story comes from a group of students who found out the hard way that not every classmate who joins your circle belongs there. It was finals week, and 5 friends had gathered in the library basement to study. The basement lounge was ugly and dim, with buzzing fluorescent lights and stained carpet, but it was open 24/7. They pushed tables together, set up their laptops, and got to work. For the first couple of hours, it was normal. They typed, scribbled, whispered, even laughed at dumb jokes while surviving on caffeine and vending machine snacks. But then Jenna noticed something. Someone else was at the table. A girl. Nobody had seen her walk in. She wasn't carrying books or even a backpack. She just sat there with her hands folded, staring forward without saying a word. At first they thought maybe she was just another student who needed company, but then the lights flickered. When they came back, she wasn't in the same seat. She was closer. Nobody said anything, but everyone noticed. The second flicker came minutes later, and this time she was halfway down the table, still silent, still staring. The third flicker, and she was sitting directly next to Chris. Her face was wrong. Her smile stretched too wide, frozen in place. Her eyes looked huge, glassy, with no light reflecting off them at all. Chris pushed his chair back so hard, he knocked over his coffee. The stranger didn't move. She only tilted her head slightly, her smile not changing. They tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The emergency exit didn't budge either. Their phones had no signal, though they always worked fine in the basement. The vending machines buzzed louder, like static filling the air. The lights flickered again, and when they came back, there were 6 laptops on the table, 6 cups of coffee, 6 chairs. But there were only supposed to be 5. They tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The emergency exit didn't budge either. Their phones had no signal, though they always worked fine in the basement. The vending machines buzzed louder, like static filling the air. The lights flickered again, and when they came back, there were 6 laptops on the table, 6 cups of coffee, 6 chairs. But there were only supposed to be 5. By the time they got out, the girl was gone. None of them could remember exactly how the door opened or how they left. But later, when Jenna scrolled through her notes on her laptop, she noticed something chilling. One of her open Word documents, One she swore she hadn't touched had a single line typed into it. Just one sentence. "You forgot to say goodbye." The students never saw her again. They never even figured out who or what she was. No missing student reports matched her face, and no one in the dorms recognized her description. But every time they tried to study in that same lounge afterward, they swore they could still feel her there, watching, waiting for the lights to flicker again. And to this day, none of them will ever sit in a group study session after midnight, because the truth is, you never really know who's sitting across from you when the night gets too quiet. Every college campus has its secrets, locked doors you're not supposed to open, forgotten stairwells that lead to nowhere, basements sealed shut for decades. But at my university, there were rumors of something more unsettling. A network of maintenance tunnels buried beneath the oldest buildings. Some claimed they were just storage. Others whispered they were used during the war, or that homeless people sometimes lived down there. Nobody really knew for sure. But what I do know is this. My friends and I found an entrance one night, and once we stepped inside, we discovered something carved into those walls that made us wish we had never gone down there at all. Every college campus has its secrets, locked doors you're not supposed to open, forgotten stairwells that lead to nowhere, basements sealed shut for decades. But at my university, there were rumors of something more unsettling. A network of maintenance tunnels buried beneath the oldest buildings. Some claimed they were just storage. Others whispered they were used during the war, or that homeless people sometimes lived down there. Nobody really knew for sure. But what I do know is this. My friends and I found an entrance one night, and once we stepped inside, we discovered something carved into those walls that made us wish we had never gone down there at all. Every campus has its legends, and the creepiest one at this university was about the maintenance tunnels. Built decades ago, they were rumored to stretch under almost every building, a labyrinth that nobody used anymore. Officially, they had been sealed off in the 1970s, but students whispered about hidden entrances, behind boiler rooms, beneath stairwells, in locked service doors. One night, 4 friends decided to see if they could find them. They slipped into the engineering building after hours, found a service door, and pried it open with a crowbar. The air that rushed out was stale and damp, heavy with mold and rust. They climbed down a short flight of concrete stairs and turned on their flashlights. The tunnels went on forever. Narrow brick walls, rusted pipes, dripping water. Their footsteps echoed strangely, like the sound was being swallowed and stretched at the same time. At first, it was exciting. They joked about finding hidden rooms or skeletons, laughing to cover their nerves. But the laughter faded when they saw the carvings. Names scratched into the brick walls, dozens of them. Some with dates. Daniel H., class of 72. Marissa K., class of 85. They laughed nervously again, thinking it was just graffiti. But the deeper they went, the fresher the carvings looked, like someone had made them days ago. Then one of them stopped, pointing at the wall. Carved into the brick was his own name. Not just his name, but tonight's date. They swept their flashlights across the wall. Every one of their names was there, each with the same date, tonight. The tunnels shifted. Passages they had already walked weren't there anymore. New ones opened. The air felt alive, pressing in on them. The whispering started soon after, faint at first, like voices trapped inside the walls. The more they panicked, the louder it got, until it wasn't whispers anymore, but screaming. They ran, but the tunnels only twisted more. When their lights hit another wall, they froze. It wasn't names this time. It was messages carved deep into the brick. Let use out. Still here. We're hungry. Their flashlights all died at once. The last thing they saw before the dark swallowed them was a fresh carving directly beneath their names. One word. Found. None of them were ever seen again. We ran back through those tunnels as fast as we could, every echo of our footsteps sounding like someone or something was chasing us. When we finally made it out, gasping for air under the cold night sky, none of us spoke a word. We didn't need to. We had all seen it. The names carved into the walls. And one of them was mine. To this day, I don't know how it got there. I had never set foot in those tunnels before that night. But every time I walk across campus now, I can't shake the feeling that's somewhere beneath my feet. In the dark, there's a wall waiting to add the names of those who go missing next. Maybe mine was just a warning. Or maybe it was a promise. College is supposed to be one of the safest and most exciting times of your life. New friends, new freedom, new opportunities. But behind the dorm doors, inside the classrooms, and beneath the very ground students walk on every day, are stories that remind us how fragile that sense of safety really is. A dorm room that doesn't match reality. A stranger who doesn't belong, but sits just a little too close. A tunnel lined with the names of the missing. These aren't the kinds of stories you'll hear on a campus tour, but they're the ones that stay in your head long after the lights go out. If these stories unsettled you, don't forget to leave a like. It helps the channel more than you know. And if you're new here, subscribe for more true horror stories every week. Because sometimes, college doesn't just test your grades. It tests your sanity.